President Biden and Vice President Harris have both given a clear message to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They want a ceasefire in the war against Hamas as soon as possible.
Well, today in Florida, Netanyahu will meet with former President Donald Trump for the first time in nearly 4 years. CBN's Tara Mergener has the story.
Trump's relationship with the prime minister has been strained since Netanyahu was one of the first world leaders to congratulate President Biden on his victory in 2020. But on Truth Social, Trump writes, looking forward to welcoming Bibi Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. Trump, who considers himself Israel's strongest ally in the Oval Office, says it's time to end the war in Gaza.
I want him to finish up and get it done quickly. You got to get it done quickly because they are getting decimated with this publicity. And, you know, Israel is not very good at public relations.
Netanyahu's visit to Florida follows meetings with President Biden in the White House Thursday.
Well, welcome back, Mr. Prime Minister. We got a lot to talk about.
Since announcing his decision not to seek re-election, Biden insists ending the war remains a top priority during his final months in office. Netanyahu is trying to maintain support from U.S. leaders.
And I look forward to discussing with you today and working with you in the months ahead on the great issues before us.
Biden and the Prime Minister also holding meetings behind closed doors with the families of hostages being held since the terror group's deadly October 7th attack on Israel.
President Biden's visit with Netanyahu comes a day after the prime minister's dramatic speech to Congress, where he defended the war in Gaza. Just blocks away, pro-Palestinian demonstrators clashed with police.
And in her first meeting with a foreign leader since launching her presidential campaign, Vice President Kamala Harris also met privately with Netanyahu, where she talked about Palestinian suffering in Gaza.
I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians.
Like Biden, Harris is strongly pushing the Prime Minister to accept a ceasefire deal. In Washington, Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, how will the latest push from Biden and Harris for a ceasefire and a Palestinian state, how's that being received in Israel?
Well, in two ways in terms of the ceasefire, Gordon. First of all, some of the families that were there at the White House, they want a ceasefire. They would well like to accept the current deal on the table, and that's really the sentiment of many people here in Israel. However, there are others, and perhaps maybe a majority of Israelis that really want to defeat Hamas, and they want to use military force to help free the hostages. There's an example of a group called the Tikva Forum, and the head of that forum, Tikva meaning hope, is that he has a son that's a hostage. And believe it or not, before October 7th, they were on a Shabbat dinner, and the son, who's now a hostage, said, listen, Dad, if I'm ever captured by Hamas, don't make a deal. And so that shows the other side of the thing. In terms of a Palestinian state, I would argue that right now it feels a little tone deaf for people here in Israel, and something rejected by the overwhelming majority of Israelis, and October 7th changed all that. A two-state solution may sound good in Washington and other capitals, but not here in Israel. And they would argue here in Israel, well, who are you going to have a two-state solution with? Certainly not Hamas, and many people see the Palestinian Authority as something that's really not going to be a good partner for peace as well.
Well, if you held elections in Ramallah today, I think Hamas would win. So you look at these things, and it's like the world is turning a blind eye to what Hamas is actually saying. Does Sinwar, he's the head of Hamas, operational head, does he still believe that he has the upper hand? I mean, he said famously, I have Israel right where I want them. Is that still the case?
Well, he does have the advantages that right now he has all the hostages, or the remaining hostages that are alive, and he's using that as the leverage against Israel. He seems ready to make a deal, but on his term, he wants an end to the war, and he wants to pull out of all Israeli forces. Those are non-starters. Whether or not he feels if he really does have Israel just where he wants them remains to be seen, because militarily right now it seems like Hamas is nearly defeated in many ways. I heard from one of my sources who said they've defeated 24 of the battalions in late May, and that last one would have been in Rafah. There is progress that the IDF is making securing Gaza. Somebody has been telling me that they're weeks away maybe from transitioning to major battles to a low intensity fighting. On the other hand, Gordon, it's going to take, as some say, a generation to de-radicalize Gaza after the training and the indoctrination they've had ever since 2007.
Well, the thing that gets me, and I really puzzle about it, because it seems the West is just not paying attention to it at all, and that is the charter from Hamas all the way back in '88. Yes, did they revise that in 2017, but they never renounced it, and they never revoked it. And part of that charter in Article 13 is a negotiated settlement is not possible. Jihad is the only answer here. So can Hamas even come to a negotiated settlement with Israel in face of what their own charter says, that you just can't do it?
No, I don't think so at all. And like you said, actually, Hamas is much more popular in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, than the PLO or the Palestinian Authority. And they're committed. I've heard over the years, if there's one thing about Hamas, is that you need to believe what they say. And they do believe that. There's really no negotiations they can have with Israel. They call it the Zionist entity. And they're committed to destroying Israel. And after October 7th, they said they would do it again and again and again. And so really, I don't see any way that Hamas could be any involved in sort of a deal. And then if you look at what the Palestinian Authority says in their own media, and it's documented by places like Memory or Palestinian Media Watch, they say nearly the same thing as Hamas does, and really no negotiations. And they say that in Arabic. They may not say that in English, but it's very clear what their intentions are.
Well, it all goes back to the Khartoum resolutions, the famous 3 no's: no peace, no negotiation, no recognition. And you look at Yasser Arafat after he was given an unbelievable deal under the Clinton administration, and Hillary Clinton has been very vocal recently. There's no peace here. You can't have it because they will reject it. And after all of that, you have Arafat standing up famously in Arabic, I mean, just fist in the air, jihad, 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 jihad. And the crowd erupted. It was, when are we actually going to believe what they say, that no, they will never recognize a two-state solution? They don't want it. They want to drive Israel into the sea. Let's talk about unity now. I'm just amazed at what happened in Beijing, where Hamas and Fatah came to a unity agreement. And just to remind everybody, when Hamas won the election in Gaza, 2006, 2007, they took Fatah members and they threw them off the roof of buildings. I mean, that shows the level of disagreement that they had. And so how in the world did they ever get to a unity agreement?
Well, I would describe it this way, Gordon. I would say it's unity with an asterisk. They did sign this unity declaration in Beijing, and it included Hamas and Fatah. But however, I think there's still a disagreement, or something to be worked out, and it hasn't worked out since 2007. The PLO, which is the umbrella organization of all these Palestinian groups, they want Hamas to come under their authority and under their control. So that's how the PLO perceives this. Hamas, on the other hand, which enjoys, as we've said, the popularity of most people in the West Bank, they want to be separate. So I think there's still yet to be something to be worked out, if ever, between Fatah or the PLO and Hamas. I mean, it's a matter of who's going to be in charge. And PLO wants to have Hamas under their umbrella, and Hamas certainly wants, I think, to maintain control. So it's quite a declaration there in Beijing, but I think that asterisk means who's going to be in charge, and that'll be, I think, the key point going forward.
Well, let me ask a bigger asterisk. If it's done in Beijing, does China want control? Are they looking for greater influence in the Middle East?
Definitely. They want to push the United States out. They want to put Russia out. This is all part of their global agenda as well, some of their Belt and Road Initiative. They want to have more influence here in the Middle East. Certainly, that's why they hosted all those Palestinian factions in Beijing, why they had a deal with Iran, last year or the year before, giving them $25 billion. So this is certainly part of China's agenda, get more influence here in the region, and then push out both the United States and Russia.
Well, Chris, thanks for the insight, and I pray for your safety. You're definitely in the hot zone, so please stay safe, and please continue to pray. You are our watchman on the wall. Thanks so much.